Well, hello there. We meet again. Sort of a big day here for me and you, because today I'm making a deliberate transition. I'm now going to be talking to you about my definitive journey, and this is a term that comes from Carlos Castaneda. Talks about what your life is when essentially you begin to turn on. Being turned on isn't Castaneda language. I'm kind of drawing on that, 1960s merry pranksters kind of concept of turning on. You turn your being on, right? And that's the essence of it, is turning on. Whatever healing journey we on, being a seeker, whatever it might be. The goal is to turn on, and once you turn on, it's then what you can make out of this precious moment that we have. And this new direction arose in me yesterday, because I went out and I played music out in the park. It was very beautiful, and I realized that there's a piece of my life that's been missing, and it's been missing because of, again, going back to my healing journey, because it's still a healing journey. I call it a definitive journey now because I've reached a level that I'll get to in a second. But one of the blockages in me was, of course, the old patterns that I was trapped in, emotional blockages, dislocation from self, broken thinking, all that. Essentially old broken patterns of living as a result of the conditioning that I'd been through and wasn't able to take hold of. And one of those was lying to myself, ultimately. And the conditioning that we experience, which causes us to question our own authenticity and our own value in ourselves, and which can, depending on what you're like, it can cause you to get stuck in an unhealthy way. I've been talking about trauma. Ultimately it is traumas. By traumas, again, using other words, the abrasions of life, that happen to us. And then there are the moments of the big traumas, that when real things happen and impact us, which have a way of making all the small abrasions and little mistakes we're making really, really bad. And in my life, it was my mom dying, and it really sealed me into a lot of really unhealthy patterns. And so when I talk about healing, a lot of it is soaking in those experiences to unhook myself from those old moments and those old choices that I'd made, which were unhealthy ones, but ones that were made when I was pretty much helpless, when I was a child. And that's when damage gets done. That's where it begins, is when we were little and helpless, how people treated us, and how we then internalized that treatment into our own picture of the world. And so I've spent a number of weeks now talking to you, just rambling along, because as I've said to you, I'm learning as I go along here. I don't really have a set plan. I know that I want to communicate things to you, and that I feel a pull inside of myself to share this, and yet I don't have a clear plan. And yet yesterday, as I thought about it, I realized that I need to get into another phase of this, and the blockage that I had was lies. I'm not a liar by nature. However, I lied to myself. And by lying to myself and disconnecting myself from my truth, I lived in a world where I stopped believing in truth. And that led me to terrible, terrible places. It made me susceptible to lies. It made me unable to distinguish truth from myself. And, led me into very bad situations in life. And those are the things that I'm healing. And the deepest part of the healing is to realize that your truth is a stillness inside. Truth is silence. What we then create out of that silence is our intent. And so everything we do in life is a creation, a fabrication, a fiction. We fictionalize through our mental process filtered through our memories and all the other things that have happened to us, right? We fictionalize that stillness and that knowing, you know? And by fictionalize, I'm trying to get to something because I was all susceptible to lies, which are rationalizations and ways ways that we've developed of, see, look at my little hand gestures, like wheels within wheels, you know, the ways we talk to ourselves and convince ourselves of things when we know deep down that something else is real. And the things that I'm talking to you in my healing journey, they're the real pieces. And in my previous incarnation, as it were, when I was a prisoner of my mind and unable to break free from rationalizations and justifications and essentially living a lie, I mean, the truth is life is a creation, and nothing we can say about life is actually, you know, like the truth. But the truth is something we know inside, and it's our intent which gives truth to whatever creation that we are making. And so the difference between me now and between me when I was younger is I didn't know that distinction. So I was forever lost, never being sure, never knowing what was what, and yet always knowing what was what, but being unable to access it in the day-to-day world. I always knew it in music, and yet I wasn't able to somehow bring that into the world of my actual, the world of my life as a man in our community, as a being on this earth, as a person who belongs here with everyone else. You know, I had all these terrible ideas, and it created these very, very self-destructive fictions inside myself. And so now I'm aware that whatever I say is another kind of fiction, except it's a fiction rooted in the truth of my being, the ultimate truth of my being. And that is what this is. This is my gesture to you, because I think sharing these sorts of experiences is important for me. It's important for all the people I've ever shared it with. And so I think it's something that we all need to do as a society, as a culture, as human beings on this earth, as earth beings, as energy entities, you know, like whatever we are. I truly believe that we are here to love, heal, evolve, and dream. That's what we're here to do. And I've said that to you as my mantra, and I called it the gears of living. And gears of living, it sounds kind of mechanical. What is a gear? A gear is a thing with teeth. It locks together, these wheels with teeth. And when they turn together, they create momentum, right? And so by identifying what I consider to be gears, they're ways of connecting with silence in a healthy way. Always be loving. If there's something in the way, always be healing. If you find your wounds are healing, be evolving. That's to be a part of society, be a part of the world, be a part of evolution, right? Or always be dreaming, which is to say, realize that we are living spirit's dream, and we are in a dream ourselves, and we create our reality. We create realities, and that even this evolutionary reality, this material world that we live in the world of our bodies, and the world of the physical world of the earth, even that is just one speck, one dream speck in an infinitude of possibilities. And so for me, as I've talked to you about my healing journey, it came to this point where I really identified the first key elements. And so in saying that, I realize that now I'm not just talking about my healing journey, because healing is just a gear of energy being, which I'm sharing with you, but one of what I'm thinking of as 4 essential gears in terms of human possibility. And in order to begin living that, we need to live through 3 principles that I've already talked about and didn't really realize that I was focusing on them as 3 principles. But what I'm going to tell you now as the piece which brings me together in a kind of harmony of possibility. And that's the next step, which is my definitive journey, which is what I'm starting today with you. Still a healing journey, and yet it's so much more. And so, let me begin. So, the first key piece is being loving. Loving, devotion, be devoted, Find something that you are truly devoted to. Be in love. Be in love with yourself. Be in love with what yourself is drawn to in lovingness. Whatever it might be that. Be it. Discover it. Explore it. This is the first key piece to true living. Being loving. Being devoted. And those of us in North America, we've all been exposed to Jesus. Well, Jesus is the way of the devotional path. Begin in loving. Be in love with yourself first. And then explore the world in a state of being in love and discover what you discover. Go in the direction of that love. Follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell says. It will lead you where you need to be. In my singing lately, I've been singing about living in the seat of infinity, being in the lap of infinity. This is language I learned from Sadhguru, because he talks about being in that way. We are in the lap of infinity. This is for me that loving, joyful, peaceful, joyful, blissful, ecstatic reality. And it is infinite. Once you begin learning to love, that is turning on. You turn on inside. You turn on inside, you become a lover. You love yourself. You love the people around you. You love this earth. You love. And once that begins, you have a journey of infinite dimension. There is no end to loving. There is no end to what we learn when we love. Learning and loving, to me, is the same thing. Once you turn on to being devoted and being in love with yourself and being in love with your life, you become a learner. You become a seeker, because you are learning and transforming through all the things that you do. Love is the transformative energy in our lives. It's the beginning piece. It is the step. Once you're there, you are in the lap of infinity. That's one piece. The second piece is what I mentioned yesterday, which is death. Without death, we miss all the darkness that is beyond our comprehension and beyond our ever knowing. Yes, the journey of loving and learning, the evolving journey of light and life, is endless. And we are the composite of all evolution that's ever happened. And when I say that, I realize that's just one world, that's one dimension of reality. Is the dimension of our bodies, the dimension of our conditioning memory, our cellular memory, our atomic memory, everything going back to whatever energy creation is to begin with, which is alive in us right now. Because when our parents made us physically, some other thing happened. We entered as an energy into this cellular division, into this atomic cauldron of energy creation. We entered that, and we entered this crazy dance of life. And when you turn on to love and you begin opening those places inside of yourself, you enter the infinite journey of loving and learning and dreaming, ultimately. Loving, healing, evolving, dreaming. This is the turned on life of love. And yet none of it has any meaning unless you are also aware of death. That's just the way it is. Death is the key ingredient. If you don't have an awareness of death in your life, you cannot be in love. You can't. You can love, but it's shallow. It lacks gravity. Because you will not recognize how important this moment is. If you don't recognize how important this moment is, unless you realize it will end. It's just the way it is. You need to know this. If you don't know it, then you're missing what I have been calling the sacred gravity of life. That is the awareness of death. That is the pull of all the darkness. It's beyond our comprehension now and forever. It is the dimension of eternity. And I've said in the past that this strange, mysterious life that we're in is the process of infinity unfolding forever into eternity. That is what we are. We are all of that going on inside of us right now. And without what I call the sacred gravity of the darkness, well, we cannot fully be in the light. It's a strange paradox. It's a strange, strange paradox. Because that sacred gravity is what gives meaning to our light of life, our light of love, the world of light and life in which love is the opening piece. It's the opening reality. If you're not in love with yourself, you will not learn and love and grow and be the being you're meant to be. And yet, if you're not aware that you're going to die, you are incapable of turning on at all. You're just going to be caught up in this messy nonsense of what you think the world is and what you think is merely the byproduct of what you've experienced. Thinking is no help when it comes to being alive. Thinking is a beautiful passenger on this voyage. Our thinking process is the byproduct of this unbelievably beautiful gift of evolution that we're living inside of. It's a passenger. It is something which creates meaning and creates beauty secondarily to what we're going through. And what we're going through is kind of what I'm talking about. And that is to be in the seat of infinity, which is to be turned on to being loving, being loving. This begins your endless journey in love. I say endless, but unfortunately in this realm, in this world of this body that we're living in this beautiful earth, this paradise that we live in right now, we cannot turn on unless we have awareness of death, awareness of darkness. Darkness doesn't mean evil. Darkness simply means what we cannot know. It's what we cannot know. And there is a sacred gravity, and I use that term deliberately. It is a sacred gravity. By sacred, I mean we can only approach it ritually, which is with the most deeply cultivated sense of attention and focus. And I say ritual because it's ritual which captures our attention, draws it away from all the nonsense of our small ego minds, whatever goes on in our thinking, and honestly, whatever goes on in our, well, let's face it, degenerated society out there. There's very little of what I'm talking about in society right now, and that's why I'm doing this, is because I know I need it. Everyone around me benefits from it as well. And so I want to share it with you, strangers on the internet, to say, you need it too, and find it for yourself. Because what am I saying? I'm not saying really anything about your journey. I don't know you at all. But what I'm telling you is if you turn on to being in love with your life, you open the infinite journey. The infinite journey of loving, healing, evolving, dreaming, which is to say, whatever your life can be to the maximum of your capacity to live it. At the same time, that is not possible unless you're aware of death. And you can feel the sacred gravity of that darkness, the darkness of eternity that we can't ever know, and which the infinity of our love, of our loving possibility, unfolds into forever. And we just get to be a small part of it. As a song once sang, the song doesn't die, just the singer. And I'm a singer, and the song that I sing is just a few notes in an eternal melody, an eternal vibration of love that I'm choosing to be a part of because I can, because it's the only thing that makes sense to me. And so, those two pieces, those two counterpoints, which Castaneda would sum up as tonal, being the world of loving, light and life, and nawal, that being the dark eternity, the unknowable, which is in us. And we need to have awareness of it, even though we can't know it. It's just there inside of us, and it materializes things in our lives. It is a mysterious and strange thing, I will tell you. And we need it. We need both, because when both are active in our lives, intent arises inside of us. And that's that other thing I mentioned, intent. When we are calm and silent inside, when we are tapped into that loving energy, and we are aware of the infinite possibility of love, the loving energy, and at the same time we feel the pull of the sacred gravity of spirit. And spirit is death is spirit's manifestation in our lives, and it's with us at all times, because once you know that you're going to die, this life is just a dream. We are living a dream. So let us make this dream the most amazing, joyful, loving, ecstatic dream that we can make it. How do we do that? It's intent. That's what intent is. Intent is the thing that exists in everything that is alive to be its fullest being, whatever that might be. And when you tap the intent, intelligence comes into your life. Intelligence, which, yes, is part of the world of light and life, and therefore accessible through your loving being, your energy. And yet it's also steeped, soaked, saturated in the dark unknown of spirit, whose face is death in our lives. The only face of spirit we ever get to see is death. And that's not even really to say we see it, except we can apprehend that it's there. We can be aware that it's there. And as I say, I'll just repeat it one more time, when we feel that we are in a seat of infinity, that is to say we are turned on, we are loving beings, we are loving energy entities here in this material realm. And this material realm is infinite. It's infinite and yields forever to our discovery. This is evolution and evolving. And so what I'm saying to you right now is that the reason why this is a definitive journey today, and yesterday it was just a healing journey, is because healing is a dimension. It's a gear of living, a gear that I practice every day, and yet it's only part of a much larger experience, which is evolutionary. To be tapped into our evolution is to be loving energy being. Proceed out, explore, seek, be in love with this life, and you will find you are an agent of creation, an agent of love, and an agent of evolving process, And yet, even that is just a dream. Just a dream in spirit's mysterious unraveling. And so, intent becomes active in us. Intent is what we begin to realize when we are both in love and aware that death is the only face of spirit that we can ever perceive. And it's with us at all times. It is a sacred gravity. It's reachable through ritual. So if my words seem strange, find a system. Find what your heart leads you to. Find what your love opens you to. It starts with yourself, leads you into the world. Don't ever forget that the world is a kind of illusion. I know I'm using say like Vedic knowledge. It's an illusion, but it's real. Its texture is real. It's real. Death is real. We're real right now, and yet it's still an illusion, because what really matters is loving energy being. That is the true essence, and that is the part of us that will that will be present when we die, whatever that means. When we go to merge with spirit, that is what merges with spirit. And so any interaction with the outer world, don't ever forget that it's a creation of your loving intent, your loving energy. Whatever you get involved in, what it teaches you, what you learn, you can learn forever. And learning is good. We need to learn. We need to keep evolving. This process is valuable, but don't get caught up in it because it's still just a dream. This again is the nature of evolving. Is this not what you think it is? We can't conceive what the future will be because this is a dream. I mean, look at our bodies. Our bodies once didn't exist. Hundreds of millions of years ago, I happen to know in my loving energy that in this material domain, we are the product of evolution. We are evolving right now. And hundreds of millions of years ago, there were no bodies. There was single-celled life only on this planet. There was a point in time hundreds of millions of years ago when single-celled life was all that there was. And I imagine a time when these individual cells, they were the predominant life form. They were all that life was. In fact, cells were the result of some kind of previous process of evolution from whatever protoplasmic pre-material energy matter was bubbling up in the earth in those times, and it became single-celled life. So in other words, other even more strange small parts came together to form cells. Cells were themselves a collective entity. See what I mean? It just keeps on going back and back and back. It just goes forever in that direction, right? But I mean, like, even speaking of a single-celled life form is to speak about a corporate entity that's the product of previous evolution. Anyhow, I imagine there must have been a moment when all those single-celled beings there in the depths of the ocean in which they lived looked out into the infinity of that ocean. And the ocean of the earth was their infinity. It was their infinity. Circular in dimension, just the same way we look at the universe around us right now, the visible universe. It's circular somehow, even though we know it must be more, and yet all we can see is a circularity. Same way, I feel those single-celled organisms, they looked into that infinitude that they could never hope to cross in a million of their lifetimes. And they said, how will we explore this immensity? And then they began creating bodies. They began coming together. How do you explain that other than to say intent was at work and those cells somehow recognized the need to come together in some other way to explore the vastness that they lived in? And here we are, hundreds of millions of years later. We individually as human beings are a new single unit of evolution. And yet we're a corporate entity. We are a conglomeration of cells that have come together, and we apparently are the apex of some kind of evolutionary process on our planet. Among embodied beings, we appear to be the final apex of what life on this planet has presumed or has created. So here we are. And where do we find ourselves? We find ourselves aware of a new, vast sea of endeavor. This vast and eternal sea around us. The sea of space. The space of the galaxy that we cannot cross in a million of our lifetimes. And yet we feel the pull of it, just as those cells did. And so what's going on? We are coming together. Look at this internet that we have, bringing us together in ways that were impossible even 100 years ago. Quantum evolution is happening right now. I'm not saying I know what it is, but I'm telling you that what feels in me to express to you is that the future is whatever corporate being we assemble ourselves into, probably a technological being that will expand out into the cosmos as those cells came together in bodies and explored the oceans, discovered them, encompassed them, left the oceans, came to land, and through hundreds of millions of years became us. And now we are in another phase where this individuality that we think of as the apex of evolution is just another platform into some unfathomable, mysterious future that we're plunging into. And for me, saying these things to you is my part. This is the part that I'm playing, because in order to keep evolving and not to just be some lost offshoot which went extinct, I feel we need this knowledge right now. We need it. We need to know that opening in a loving way is our energy being, and that opens us to being in the infinite, loving, healing, evolving, dreaming domain that we live in. And that without awareness of death, we lack the sacred spiritual gravity of dark eternity that we can't know, but which was with us in the form of death, that we must be aware of in order to truly live our loving energy. And that when we do these things, we tap our intent. And intent is this intelligence that's in the universe that we can become a part of, and that we can mobilize and live and explore in our own lives. Right now, me talking to you, this journey that I'm on, this is my intent realizing. I am realizing my intent with you and through you. That's what I got to say for today. So, that was a big one. This has been my definitive journey. The first part of my definitive journey. Still a healing journey, but healing is just one part of a much vaster infinitude of infinite possibility, which love unlocks. Loving energy. Be loving, be healing, be evolving, and be dreaming. Whatever you find yourself in, let your love lead you. And don't ever forget that we are going to die, because without it, nothing has any meaning. So, on that note, be well, good luck to you, and I'll see you next time.